Good morning, everyone from Brisbane. Welcome to the replay of this live stream. If you're new here, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button. If you're not subscribed, if you like memory improvement training so you can memorize addresses, so you can memorize foreign language vocabulary, decks of cards if you like, and addresses, because I'm going to 35 Collingwood and Fox, at the corner of Collingwood and Fox, more or less. And 35 Collingwood, there's a cafe called Stalled Espresso. And I was sitting there this morning and I was doing this classic thing that even the memory experts do. And I was just like, what was that address I'm going to? And then I finally just thought, man, you got the superpowers here. What the heck are you doing? Why not just memorize it? And so here's what's so important is that you develop the habit of reminding yourself to use the techniques, because even when you get really, really good, you'll sometimes revert back to not just grabbing that information like that and memorizing it. And I fall into that just as much as other people, especially when it's things that are just not my favorite thing to memorize. Like, for example, addresses. It's just not the favorite thing. So names I love, cards I love, foreign language vocabulary I love. It's just like I've trained myself to be on autopilot for all of that. Just boom, memorize it. But when it comes to things like addresses, it's like this least favorite thing, but it's the same skills. And so when you get yourself in the habit of reminding yourself to use the techniques, you're going to find that you do a lot better. And then that's what I did today. I just reminded myself and I thought, okay, let's do this. And so 35 is a really, really interesting thing because it's a mailman in the PAO. So if you don't know what a PAO is, 00 to 99 PAO in this case, it's when you have an image for every 2-digit number. And that image, in my case, the way I teach it and do it is based on the major method. And so the major method is a way of associating every digit from 0 to 9 with a consonant, and that consonant is then made to make words. So when you take something like 3 and it's associated with M, and then you take something like 5, which is associated to L, you get mail. And I always think of something more specific than mail, so I see the mailman that was on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. If you're joining us now live, hit the thumbs up. Let me know in the chat where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. And always love to see where in the world people are from, and if you have any questions, pop them in. Now, so that gives mail, and then it's very, very specific. And then Collingwood, I'm thinking in my mind, okay, so who could be calling wood? Right? Because now we have this action going on. Now, it's pretty easy to use the mailman to be like, hey, where's the wood? Right? And so forth. And then I think of wood and my mind starts to go to like David Lynch. And if you know David Lynch, then you probably know why I'm thinking about wood. And if you don't, well then, think about watching some David Lynch movies, because one of the things that you want to do is always fuel your imagination with new potential tools for using the memory techniques. So popular culture is great for that. And one of the things that now we have is already a very, very strong basis for remembering that it's 35 Collingwood. And then I look at the intersection, so it's Fox Street, and I think now we can get a fox involved in here. And then I just think of who's a fictional fox? So the Fantastic Mr. Fox, right? And Bane Presto, we've got more material to work with. And I can think of the books, I can think about the movie that I've seen of this particular character. Try and think, was it George Clooney who did the voice? So I can hear something in my mind. I don't think it was it George Clooney or not? I don't know, it doesn't matter. It'd be useful if that was correct. But now I'm just generally going through my mind and starting to make some connections, and that's really, really great because it's getting the brain chemistry working that's gonna encode this. Julie says, hi from California, David Lynch, thumbs up. All right, thumbs up everybody for David Lynch. And I haven't looked yet, but if this is in this book, but the person that I'm meeting, Martin, really interesting writer here in Brisbane, we're gonna have some coffee there, and he mentioned, and now there's the name of the cafe. So it's Stalled Espresso. And now we've got this sort of like, it's not really a memory palace, but we've got an intersection. And the intersection is forming in my mind because I know the general location. I haven't been on this particular street. I don't know exactly where this intersection is, but I know the general area, which is Albion in Brisbane here. I'm gonna go there. And by the way, if you're watching this and you wanna come join us, just stop by. It's 35 Collingwood in Albion, and the cafe is called Stalled Espresso. And so I can just think here, and now I think of the word stalled. So some of the things that start to come to mind is like a stalled car. Imagine a cafe that's in the shape of a car that is stalling, and I get my dad in there because my dad's a mechanic and he's always fixing cars and stuff, and this is stalled. And then I think, yeah, that's kind of abstract though. Can we make it a little bit more solid? So I go in and start to think of what else does stall have to do with, right? And it has to do with horses. So a horse stall. So now there's a car stalled in there. My dad is there. It's a Mustang because Mustangs are horses, and in the horse is in the stall, and all this sort of stuff. And it's just weaving together. And yeah, could use Google Maps for sure. And maybe I would open it up and see, okay, where exactly is it? But there's something really cool about encoding in advance where it is, and then just seeing the environment when you step out of a station and looking around and looking at the street names and actually being in the world as opposed to being in the app, right? And I might digital fast today. I don't know. I'm going to text my wife and say, hey, cool with you if I'm out of touch for a couple hours or whatever. Sometimes it's better if I am in contact or reachable. Other times than not. It's the 21st century, you know, as safe as this city is. Sometimes you want to be in touch. But how cool is that to be able to say to somebody after looking at an address and just being like, yeah, so it's stalled espresso and it's on 35 Collingwood at the corner of Fox, right? And then you build this sort of thing that's just in your mind. And there's not really even a memory palace there, except for it's a memory palace that is implied by the intersection in the world. And now when I go there, I'm going to be paying so much more attention to that intersection in the world because it's got the groundwork in the mind. And then the geographical map, the geospatial mapping will have a geospatial, geopolitical. I'm thinking of the book Geopolitical Aesthetic by, well, his name will come to me in a second here. Old academic dude, James something. Anyway, geopolitical aesthetic is not what I meant at all. It's something that you will definitely want to have this geospatial relationship with, and really have an amazing time going out and being in the world and just allowing yourself to have that deeper relationship and not get lost and not get trapped and not get caught in apps, because that's just, it's not that great. And I was just reading research about how digital amnesia is really ramping up, especially for younger generations. And we don't know enough about it, but they may be getting more and more brain damage from actually having phones near to them. That's hurting this region of the brain through waves. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's very interesting to think about this, and it's not that great. It's terrible, actually, because what it's apparently damaging is what's called figural memory. And figural memory is sort of related to how we identify shapes and how we recognize them in the first place, and then how we encode them into memory. And so one of the things I would suggest that you think about is how that street corners are shapes, they're figures, and signs are shapes, and actual buildings are shapes. And so the more one is exposed to digital technology, then perhaps the less one will develop the capabilities of spatial memory and encoding. And so it's really important to consider this and enable yourself to have sufficient time away from the machines. And whenever you have the opportunity, instead of letting the machine guide you there, allow yourself to at least use the opportunity to memorize the address and get some geospatial encoding going on, so that you're able to actually exercise your brain and protect it from the decay that is almost certainly happening by the exposure to devices and screen addiction and so forth. But more than that, even if all of that stuff doesn't pan out and isn't as dramatic as some of the reports and stuff says that it is, and it may be generational as well, even if all of that is not as dramatic as it might seem, it's still the case that you would be de-skilling your spatial memory and your figural memory and all the other levels of memory that you could be continually training just by taking the opportunity. And I'm so glad that I caught myself today and was just like, hold on, whoa, 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 whoa. Just memorize this. Maybe it's something that could be guided to by using Google, and who knows, I might even do it. But at the end of the day, I'd loved the opportunity, and I did take the opportunity to memorize this 35 Collingwood Street stalled espresso cafe at the corner of Fox. And I'm gonna enjoy that I took that for the rest of my life, or at least for as long as I live here in Brisbane. And I love this, and I always, jide myself when I haven't taken the opportunity to use these tools and say, just memorize where I've been, where in the world I've been, and what's the street corners and so forth. And it's really, really good because it helps you create memory palaces later as well, and use all of this stuff and have specific information about where things are, what they were called. If the building changes, you'll know what was there years ago by name. You'll have a way of stretching your brain and exercising it and thinking back to these. Maybe they seem trivial at the time, but they're just very rich later opportunities to think back and go, oh yeah, I remember that. It was called stalled espresso. And you'll remember it so much more immediately and get this great brain exercise, and you'll get spatial mapping exercise as well as you go through it. So that's going to be wonderful for you to consider. So I see Cat Satan is here. Always love to see Cat Satan. How are you doing? I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. And everybody, if you're here now, feel free to pop in any comments or questions if you have any. We have had lots of questions about memorizing directions and whatnot, and that's really a great starting point for y'all. If you need to memorize addresses, then you can obviously use the world as the memory palace, or you could use a memory palace to craft out your strategy much more specifically by creating memory palaces in advance where you're going to encode this information, the actual addresses, the street names, the intersections. There's several different ways that you could approach it, but I would suggest just starting to make sure that you catch yourself in the moment and be just like, why am I not memorizing this, and developing a sense in advance of where that I'm going, and then resist using the machines. And this relates to the previous video we released on this channel about using entire cities as memory palaces. And one of the challenges there is that people don't even know their own city well enough to be doing it. And I certainly have come to learn Brisbane quite well, but I would never consider using the entire city as a memory palace because it just doesn't make sense. I don't know it well enough, and I never potentially could, and it would not be the way to get the margin out of the city. The better way to get the highest possible level of quality memory palaces out of it is to stop myself, just as I have talked about today, and say, wait a second, we're going to memorize exactly where we're going before we get there, which is going to lay the ground for having a better experience of memory while there, encode it much deeper in the brain as a memory palace for the rest of all time, and be a much more valuable tool. And everything surrounding it will be much more valuable because I'm going to be hyper present, hyper aware, really deep in the world, really enjoying each and every minute and proceeding towards the actual location, knowing it's going to be a profound memory palace for great use. And then the next thing is, and this is what's so beautiful about when you do this, I'm going to be sitting there with Martin, and we're going to be talking, and things are going to come up, and I'm just going to start to encode it. And I'll, the things that matter, the things that I want to memorize. And so because of this foundational work in advance, which is opening up all the floodgates for getting the most out of the moment there, I'm going to use his body probably, and maybe perhaps some elements of my body in the whole room there, and just start to remember the things that are coming up, the facts, the details. He's a really fact-oriented guy. So we were talking a lot about the dates of movies, different titles of movies, directors. Was that Ken Russell or was that David Lynch and so forth? And the last time, and I was just thinking, making little flags to go and check out later, the factual accuracy and so forth, because he's like a reader of Leonard Maltin's movie guides and stuff like this. And it's just great to be able to kind of make a to-do list out of conversations without having to write anything down. You get home and you be like, yeah, what was that we wanted to? And in this case, it was his memory was that David Cronenberg had directed Altered States, and I knew that this was not the case. This was the last time we met. I knew that it was Ken Russell, but I didn't want to be too sure. Could be wrong about that. So I made a note mentally in the Memory Palace of the cafe that we had been in the last time, which is the Menagerie down on Caraway Street, and 22/8, I believe. And it is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful to be able to go at home and be like, what was it? See the poster of Altered States, and then go in and see, okay, there we go. That's what I wanted to look up. Look up Ken Russell, and it was Ken Russell, and be like, there we go. So amazing, amazing, amazing. I actually have to memorize the exact address of the Menagerie because I never memorized it. It's just down there. But I'm pretty sure that it's something like that. It's definitely on Caraway Street. But that's another thing. It's like an opportunity. Why haven't I made a little image for the exact number so that I can just whip it off to people? The time that it takes to like Google search people and send people a link, as opposed to just that's also like a great thing, a time-saving thing to be able to do. And it's just good for your brain. I remember talking with Lynn Kelly about this when I interviewed her on The Memory Code, which is her great book, which is really a great evidence for how important spatial memory is, exercising it, developing it, investing in it for your future against things like Alzheimer's and dementia. And she really opened my sensitivity to this, is that you need to take these opportunities because spatial memory is so profound, and it's something that when you invest in it, you're investing in the lifespan of your brain. And so really rewarding. I've always found it really rewarding. And it's just it's just a game of reminding yourself to use the tools that you have on demand and using them consistently and frequently, and really just reminding yourself to remind yourself to use them. So it's kind of like a meta level thing, but very, very important, because if you're not actually using it consistently, then you never develop the skill and you never actually develop the consistency. So you have to consistently remind yourself to be consistent. And how do you get into it? Well, you just begin, and you might set reminders for yourself in the beginning. Have you memorized anything today? Or what could you memorize today? And maybe you do it in such a way that you leave sticky notes around, or you have the journal around that I often share with you, the Freedom Journal or the Mastery Journal. I'm on a Mastery Journal right now. And it's just like a great reminder of use the Mastery Journal. It's not even a reminder of what I'm reminding myself to do inside of the Mastery Journal, but it's also a reminder of using it itself. And then you've got to internalize the command, to memorize and to use the techniques, and catch yourself not catching yourself, because even when you have these techniques for years, and I talk to memory experts and memory champions all the time, and they'll say too, yeah, it's just the weirdest thing. We sometimes don't even use the superpowers we have, and I don't know if they feel as guilty about it as I sometimes do, but it's just I always try to catch myself and then actually go and use the stuff and remember the things, because it really, really pays off always in the end. And I saw a great example of that. I gave a talk earlier this week, and it wasn't enough to just memorize the names and recite all the names of the people at the meeting, but they were like, and then you did it last time too, and all the people in the room can't believe it. And I was just like, yeah, well, let's see if I still remember them. And 24 names later, and they're just like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. And it's just amazing what you can do when you do this. And it's not so much a demonstration, but an encouragement to just show people that if a scatterbrained person like myself, who's got 1,000 ideas going on all the time about 1,000 things, can focus enough to get that done in short periods of time, anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. So there's no real barrier to your success, no matter how noisy your mind might be or anything like this. You've got to just focus on the consistency of consistency. So Brundthiver, great name, says, I have been creating my PAO system for 6 digits for the whole week. Checked out your recommendations and it helped me a lot. It is very daunting to do it, but it is already how I think with numbers. Excellent. Well, I'm glad that that helped you. Thanks for letting me know. Always appreciate when people let me know. If you're joining us now, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing in the chat. Got a little bit of time here left, and I will just encourage you to keep on going with that. 6-digit PAO that is daunting to tell you the truth. Are you doing it for competition periods, purposes? I mean, let me know in the chat. Oh, you're saying it is changing how you're thinking. Okay, yeah. Well, it certainly. That's the cool thing. I'm glad you raised that point. Getting into these techniques does change how you think. It opens one's mind to potential, and it opens one's mind to so many opportunities and different ways of doing things. And then, of course, when you memorize knowledge, it opens your mind to the knowledge in different ways. Because you can't really contemplate at a deep level and make connections between things if you don't have it in your chemical coding deep inside yourself. And it's the same thing with something as everyday and mundane as addresses of cafes. I really find this to be the case, is that you just pay attention to the world differently, and you're not looking in the app and you're not, you're looking at the world and you're observing it differently, and then that translates into things differently in the same way when you're reading books and you're encoding. So in our private group, I was helping Lachlan out with some thinking, changing your thinking about how these techniques work, and he was gonna really go into an investment of time and energy that just doesn't make sense if you know about brain science and memory and so forth. And we changed it around, and I just got on there and was reciting from memory some things there that I memorized and showing him with the book closed, and then opening the book and helping understand how this works and the page numbers and so forth. And it actually makes me pay attention to the book much differently by memorizing the actual page numbers along with the material on those pages. And then you end up making way more connections, not only to inside the book itself, but to the other books that are possible to be there within that. So really powerful and great to hear that. Yeah, always just such a wonderful, wonderful adventure. Yeah. Fredric Jameson. That's the guy's name who wrote the Geopolitical Aesthetic. I knew it had a James in there, but that's a great example of the ugly sister effect, because I'm trying to find his name. William James keeps coming, and I'm like, I know it's not William James, but I get the James thing, and then it's like Fredric Jameson. So if you're just joining us now, you wouldn't have seen that, but I was like, I made one of these things where the wrong words came out, geopolitical aesthetic, I said, instead of geospatial mapping. And then I was like, who's the author of that? And James came to me, but his name is actually Fredric Jameson. And so that's an example of what's called the ugly sister effect. Thank you, Julie. So great to see you. Look forward to a comment on the replay later. But that's an example of the ugly sister effect, where information is competing for a spot in your cognitive mind and your muscle memory of your mouth. And one of the tactics that I did there was just let it go and it'll come. And then ultimately it did. So Fredric Jameson is well worth reading, by the way, because he does talk about space a lot. It's not directly related to memory improvement, so if you do look him up, do it with caution, because it's not about memory. But I find thinking through some of the things that he said very, very useful for thinking about space. Because another book he has is called The Signatures of the Visible. And there's a particular chapter in that book where he talks about Hitchcock movies and how Hitchcock movies use space. And so if you're really going for all the possible things about space, then Fredric Jameson is very interesting, especially his film theory. And Geopolitical Aesthetic talks about a movie called The Parallax View. At least it mentions it, and Joe Kispel Kovacs was my professor at that time, who got us reading that to help understand the parallax view better. Really great movie. I keep thinking that I gotta rewatch it, so I'm gonna go do that, and maybe it'll come up with my conversation, in my conversation today with Martin at 35 Collingwood Street at the corner of Fox at Stalled Espresso. So really looking forward to that. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciated it. And Trending Cafes, I know that's mirrored here, is a great book. I haven't looked yet to see if Stalled Cafe is in here. But as a last little tip for you, these kinds of things where you have books about your city are really cool. And we're working on going and visiting all of these cafes to turn them into memory palaces. Cat Satan says, what's your morning routine? How do you keep yourself motivated? Let me look at the time here. All right, let's jam on this a little bit. Got a bit of time. Great question, Cat Satan. Thank you for that. What's my morning routine? How do I keep myself motivated? So the morning routine is really quite something that is really profound and beautiful, and I love it very much. And so I get up, and I like to hydrate myself and drink as much water as I can. I like to drink just room temperature water, and then I'll make some ruo shui, which is bai kai shui. Well, it starts ruo shui and then turns to bai kai shui, which is essentially I boil water and then I let it become room temperature, but I drink it on these multiple levels as it goes from hot to room temperature. And so that's all going on. And then brush my hair usually, brush my teeth, and these incidentally are in the mastery journal. Like I check them off that I've done this because it just really helps guide it. Even if you memorize it, it's even still good to have a checklist. Check, because you track your progress, you see the things that you're doing. And I will have the journal with me, and I'll sit down and do my meditation. And so my current meditations are, usually I start with Kirtan Kriya. Now I'm not doing the Sata Nama, but I'm varying Sata Nama with Ami Tofo, and then I'll do it forward and backwards and all that jazz. And then I'll do my Ribhu Gita, which I'm now up to about 2 pages, just really great. And so it's getting more and more profound, and will continue until I have it all. And so I'll recite that. And then I may recite it in particular patterns, out of sequence and so forth, depending how I feel, rotate it in and out with Kirtan Kriya and so forth. And I'm just really sitting there, and I'll do some stretching before and after. This is basically the stretching that Gary Weber teaches in Happiness Beyond Thought, and really making sure that you have some sort of physical movement inside of meditation is great. One of the reasons why is because you don't want to lock yourself into the intellectual parts of meditation. You want to be in your physical way. So then that's happening, and after I'm just satisfied with that, I don't time it anymore. I used to time things. I just do it for however feels right and enable myself to just go with what's right. And sometimes I will just do random movements that my body feels like it needs, and I don't worry about it too much, and I just enjoy the process. And usually at some point I'll feel like my brain is starting to open and the sun is really coming on and really intense, and just enjoy it. Enjoy the ride. I might do some breathing exercises. So that might be alternate nostril breathing, maybe some breath withholding. I might do some number skipping, all kinds of different little things you can do. I just kind of follow what it is that I feel like I need in that moment. Then, when I'm ready, bring out the cards. And so what I will do is take out the jokers, because I always get annoyed when I find that I have forgotten to take out the jokers. Because I don't want to memorize the jokers. I don't see any point, except for as a memory exercise once in a while. So sometimes I'll do it. But it actually just gives me an idea right now for actually just keeping the jokers in. Good one. Great one. Okay, good. So now I'm going to, from now on, keep the jokers in. But what I'll do is I'll shuffle, of course. I like to practice. I use the opportunity to practice what's called a pharaoh shuffle, which looks like that. That's not a perfect pharaoh shuffle by any stretch of the imagination, but I'll pharaoh, which lets you go like that, and I'll pharaoh to my heart's content. And I might just be thinking about, what's my goal with cards today as I pharaoh, and I'm sitting cross-legged on the floor, so I might just make a goal of what I'm going to do, or I might just go ahead and memorize. And there's a particular way that I do the cards as I do different challenges and work out what I'm going to do. And then I'll just start to encode them. And then, depending, I will write down the cards that I memorized immediately, or I'll say, I'm going to see if I remember to come back and write them down later, and then see how many I get back. And so that might be a test. Or I'll deliberately put a note that I'm going to write them down after I have a shower or whatever is going to happen, and so on. And if you were on the last live stream, you know that I just was starting with the cards. I got 4 in, and then my wife woke up and she came and started speaking to me. So I was like, that's it. And then I just later, after she went to her school, I went and hopped on a live stream, and I remembered what those cards were, and so on. So that's pretty much the morning ritual. I'm not writing, I'm not drafting a book right now, but when I'm just working still on the outline of the next book. I'm putting a lot of elbow grease into the outline because I want it to be the ultimate book on the topic for memory that I'm working on right now. And so every ounce of preparation is going to really, really help. And then if I was writing the book, then I would do writing. And this is all before any devices go on. This is all before any computers go on. And I would write in this iPhone here. This iPhone does not get interrupted by any notifications, and it only is for reading and writing and listening and study purposes. So it's really, really great. And I've written entire books on this. And so if I'm doing writing, technically a device will go on, but it will be on this one. And speaking of this device sometimes has a timer, but let me check in with the chats and then I'm gonna head on out of here. Oh, Maricella's here. Hello, Maricella. Cat Satan, I hope that helped you understand my morning routine. It's basically like that. It doesn't go always exactly like that. And I'd say that is the way it goes 6 to 7 times a week, 6 or 7 days a week. But sometimes there are exceptions to the rule where maybe I will, get caught up in this, that, or the other thing, and it won't happen. I've had certain people that just were in a crisis and needed to help them out and be on alert for them, or we were in Sydney and things got a little bit disrupted, etc., etc. But generally, that's the way it goes. I'm pretty much a 98% guy showing up exactly for something like that. The actual order in which these activities will take place may be different. It really depends. Oh, and I forgot. The other thing is I'll journal. And journal out my gratitude, the things that are so great and that I'm thankful for, and other things that I like to journal in order to keep my mind sharp and fresh and focused on the things that matter, and go with that. Bruntheimer says, do you still do Wim Hof? Well, I use elements of it. I take the parts that were really useful for me, but I don't ascribe to it 100%. Because there are lots of things that I can't do anymore because I'm in Australia, and like cold showers, good luck, right? It can't really get that cold. Although one has acclimatized, but yeah, the cold shower thing just doesn't quite work here. Although I will do some cold showers. Also, I looked into the vagus nerve and so forth, and it does seem that you can trigger off a similar amount of benefits from warm showers as well in terms of the vagus nerve. So I don't know, I miss cold showers, but I don't miss cold winters in Berlin, put it that way. And then in terms of the actual breathing and stretching, I haven't actually sat down and done the actual Wim Hof technique in terms of breathing and so forth. I did find it really, really interesting and useful, and did the push-ups with breath withholding and so forth. But I feel that actually when I'm like reciting Ribhu Gita or doing Kirtan Kriya and so forth, that's just another path to reaching the same sort of outcomes. So you're doing breath withholding when you're chanting something long like that, or I don't even really think of it as chanting, but reciting something that long. And the better part is that you're doing some sort of thing with your breath while exercising your memory, because it's great memory exercise. So I'm all for learning Wim Hof and so forth. Go see your doctor first, though, not medical advice. And I think if I recall the training, the first thing he says is go see your doctor first. So please do. And definitely don't be doing any breath withholding in a bathtub. I did breath withholding in the shower and so forth, but even then you got to be careful. Know what you're getting into, because hypoxia is real. And Yeah. In any case, look, there are many, many, many tools out there to explore. I'm really glad that I paid my dues with the Wim Hof technique, but ultimately it's not one that I needed to stay with, but elements of it stayed with me. So even though I don't stay with it, elements of it stayed with me. And I love it. And it's all consistent with so much of what Gary Weber teaches. And so and Gary Weber himself says in Happiness Beyond Thought, he's like, there are many boats, and some boats will get you to some islands, and then you won't need that boat that got you to a particular island. You might find another boat, and you may even just build your own boat to go to the next island, and so forth. So the goal is to become the master of many boats so that you are a better ship's captain. And the more you put into the craftsmanship of the boat industry, so to speak, the more islands you'll get to visit, and the more enjoyable and pleasant the trips to those islands will be. So those are my thoughts on Wim Hof, and one day I hope to have a chat with him and have him on the podcast. And now that you mention it, I think that we'll put that out there. And so Brunheimer says, thank you for that. Do you have any recommendation for a very focused meditation technique? As a matter of fact, thank you for asking that. That is the topic of the next book. And it's all about memory and meditation together, and focus and concentration activities that will make your focus laser sharp and in a way that makes you feel very, very good and improves your memory. So stay tuned for that. If you're not already subscribed to this channel, get subscribed. Hit the thumbs up if you haven't already. And if you're watching the replay, hit the thumbs up and get subscribed if you're not subscribed. And leave me a comment down below. Love to see you there. And okay, that's good. Brunheimer, thank you for being part of our community. And make sure you're also at magneticmemorymethod.com and subscribed there, because there's a webinar next week, but you won't know about it and you won't have the link to it unless that you're subscribed. We decided to do it just for our email list. And so it's very, very important. Oh, Brunheimer's in the masterclass. Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much for being a supporter. And I really, really appreciate that. And I look forward to putting a name to your icon there, or whatever you call the screen name, so that we can get to know each other better. And yeah, glad that you're on the email list. So look forward to that. And Cat Satan says he's going to get my book, thinks it will be great. Yeah, I hope to make it the best book on the topic that there is, and really putting the elbow grease into it. Forest Strategy is your other name. Okay. Looking forward to bumping into the name Forest Strategy again, Brunheimer. And let me see, what will we do to memorize this before I go here? So Brunheimer and Forest Strategy. So Brun, of course, is German for brown. Hive, of course, is what bees live in. The bees live in a beehive. And like, imagine a beehive filled with rivers. And then Forest Strategy. So Forrest Gump with Forrest Whitaker playing a strategy game like chess. Now, where are we going to stick all this? I'm just kind of like building this conceptually in my mind, but I got to put it somewhere. Brunheimer says, damn, you're good. It's practice, my friend. It's practice. You've got to put in the practice, and then anybody can do this, because all this stuff is already in your mind. You know Forrest Gump. You know Forrest Whitaker, or I hope you do. Like, if you haven't seen Ghost Dog, right? Ghost Dog is one of my favorites because it has the greatest memory lesson in the world. Be like the samurai who is prepared to execute one last move, even with his head cut off. So Brunheimer Forest Strategy says, just started, but I'm not that fast as yet. Here's one of my secret weapons for getting that fast. Playing cards. So I know that it's not the most practical skill, or it doesn't seem like it, but if you can just look at this and be like, oh, that's fish, and not just any fish, but the Campbelltown fish, which you may not know, because I do, because that, but you find a specific fish and so forth, and you just start combining all these things and working on your speed. Boom, there's a full course in the masterclass that you have access to, Forest Strategy Brunheimer. And I still haven't got a memory palace for you yet, but maybe I'll just use it right there. And so now the trick is going to be, to do that, and then and work it, get it into long-term memory. So where am I going? 35. Now I want to say Caraway Street, but I know it's stalled. Collingwood stalled espresso, 35 Collingwood stalled espresso at Fox Street. I'm off, and I'm going to have a great time at 35 Collingwood on the corner of Fox Street at Stalled Cafe, or Stalled Espresso Cafe. If you happen, let's just test. I want to check my accuracy here, and when we can get it on the screen. I better make the brightness here go up. So 35 Collingwood Street, Albion, and it was stalled espresso. Oh man, these small devices. I don't have thumbs big enough for this. My listening project here, these audiobooks on YouTube are great. Okay, so, whoops. Search. I don't know how this is going to show up on the screen. I know it's going to be reversed. Apologies for that. So, where do we see the address here? 35 Collingwood Street, Stalled Espresso. Is it on there somewhere? Stalled Espresso. Let's look at the map, see if it's Fox Street at the corner there. I know these are small little matters, but it does matter. And it's good for the mind. I know, I'm sorry about that. Oh man, it's going to force me to use an app. No thanks, I don't want apps on here. I don't want notifications. This is my writing device. The only reason why it actually goes online is so I can listen to audiobooks. And also my writing app, which is called Plaintext app, which incidentally I've never updated this for years, because if I update it, it ruins the apps that work so well because those guys don't update it. Anyway, it syncs with Dropbox. Otherwise, I would not have this thing go online at all. In any case, it's not showing up. It's forcing me to install some kind of app, but I'm pretty sure it was at the corner of Fox Street. Doesn't really matter, small beans. But important to me, because it does matter. Oh well. Internet is crazy. That's why I try to stay off of it as much as possible. It's not going to let me do that. But in general, pretty sure it was Fox Street. I'm going to have a lot of fun meeting with Martin. We're going to be talking about writing books, actually, because he's a writer as well. And so if you're in Brisbane, you happen to be watching this, come and join us at 35 Collingwood Street at the corner of Fox. And it's called Stalled Espresso. And it's my first time there. I'm looking forward to driving it deep into my mind as a new memory palace and memorizing some stuff that we talk about, whatever that may be. So Brundthyver, what was it? Forest strategy. By the way, I love all your content from the masterclass. Have not done it all yet. There's so much to know and to practice, but learning this is my main focus. Well, thanks for your kind words, Brundthyver. I really appreciate it. And as a last note before we go, these live streams, really, I love when people in the masterclass show up, let us know that they're in the masterclass, because one of our values is for teachers or students to become teachers, and as soon as possible. And one of the ways that you do that is, even if you're still learning, is you participate in the discussion, participate in the community, and be there. And you too can pump in anytime when you see someone's name or whatever, what your magnetic imagery might be for that, and what you're going to do with that. And that'll be a way of developing speed as well, because the more that you create and participate really, really will help unlock all of these tools for yourself. And so that's another sort of tip for you. It's one of the things that we always want to be doing is actually unlocking the skills through action. And I have been reading Jordan Peterson's Maps of Meaning, and it really stresses this point. And it's a lot about memory. It talks about episodic memory and procedural memory and semantic memory and mnestic memory, which is a new term I hadn't come across before. And one of the things that he's making so clear there is that your improvement comes from action in the world that draws from your existing episodic memory and linking your episodic memory to things that actually help you improve. And so I would encourage you Bruntheimer Forest strategy to join us as often as possible, and so it's so good that you're subscribed here and to continue to share your journey in the discussion. And I really appreciate you letting us know today that you're in the masterclass. Let me know if you have questions and so forth. Obviously, the technical things we'll keep between us and in the training, and if we can make an FAQ video for you, we will do that for sure. And really devoted to all of our community, our family, our supporters, and appreciate you being here today, and great questions, and enjoy every minute with everybody. So your last question before I go, what's the name of your future book? I'm not revealing the name yet, and the reason why is because I'm not sure that it's the name yet, but the working title is really good, strong, solid. I think it's the one I want, but I'm not entirely sure yet, so we'll settle on it when we've decided, and then we never even know if it's right, so we gotta let go of the outcome at some point. But news on that will be coming, and I might actually have a webinar just for people on the email list to go through the outline together to make sure that I've covered all the details, and don't have a bunch of stuff that's just fascinating to me that would be no use to other people. So we might be doing that soon, so watch your inbox. And then the working title would be revealed there in private circumstances. And Brunheimer says, I would love to help you as you helped me a lot in my learning project. Oh, thank you for your willingness to support, and you're supporting now, and so that's wonderful. And thank you to everybody who is here today. If you haven't already, thumbs up. Get subscribed if you aren't subscribed. Come and visit me at magneticmarymethod.com, and be sure to take the free course there. It's the great way to start to make sure that you lay the foundations for everything that's coming up in your life of learning. And if you want to join the masterclass, that is wonderful as well. And you can find information all about that at magneticmarymethod.com. And I'm going to go and talk about books with Martin. And that is at 35 Collingwood at the corner of Fox Street in Albion, Brisbane. Join us if you like. It's Stalled Espresso. Be there at noon. And don't know how long we'll be there, but you can call them and say, hey, is there some long-haired dude there still there talking with a guy who has no hair? And then ask them, how long are you going to be there still? And then I'll say, well, how long are you going to take to get here? And then we'll decide. And if not, if you're generally in Brisbane, well, let me know. Thinking about doing a meetup group, trying to figure out the particulars around that. But we'll see. The world is full of opportunity. Thank you again, everybody. Come visit me at magneticmarymethod.com. And until we speak again, very grateful for the time we get to spend together. And until we speak again, keep yourself magnetic. Bye-bye.